Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Monday Roundtable for A Voice for Men and shrinkformen.com. My name is Dean Esmay, Managing Editor and Operations Manager at A Voice for Men. With me today, as usual, is Dr. Tara Palmatier of shrinkformen.com. That's with the number 4, shrinkformen.com. How you doing today, Dr. T?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Pretty darn good, actually, even though it's been an exciting and somewhat draining weekend. Hope you had a good New Year's. And as per usual, the evil overlord, fascist, misogynistic pig, Paul Elam with the weird shirt. Say hi, Paul.
Oh, hi, and the shirt. This is. I just chose this color today in honor of Tori Shepard's journalism.
Oh, what is that? A bunch of us? I can't see it actually.
It's yellow.
Oh, it's yellow. Okay. I thought I was looking at the fish and not the yellow. Oh, yes. Tori Shepard, who along with Michael Flood is in fact a lying yellow journalist whore. I don't know who's the bigger whore, Tori Shepard or Michael Flood, but I'm going to go with Michael Flood. In any case, I think maybe even that's being too kind to them. As the title of this hangout is, what part of feminazi do you not understand? I have never liked the term feminazi myself for a number of reasons, although the more time goes on, the more I think femifascist works. I'll give my memories of where I first heard that term, and this was more than 20 years ago when Rush Limbaugh, an American political shock jock, if you will, I don't know if he created the term or if he got it somewhere else, but he certainly popularized it. And I remember when Rush Limbaugh came out, which a lot of people probably won't. I mean, this would have been, I think I first heard of him in the very late 1980s, early 90s. And in truth, I kind of liked him at the time. Even though I didn't consider myself a conservative, I found him funny and entertaining and politically incorrect. And even when I didn't agree with him, I thought he was at least funny. Now, I long ago got past that, any idea that the guy's particularly funny or particularly insightful or particularly useful to any sort of useful civil discourse. I really don't think he is. And I'm sorry if you're a ditto head. I have friends who are ditto heads. I don't hate you, but I'm sorry I hate your hero because I think he's just not an honest guy. However, he did give us feminazi. And boy, with recent developments in Australia, it's really hard for me not to whip out that term. What do you guys think?
Well, Dean, I think one of the things we need to do is clarify one thing about Rush Limbaugh. And I want to say, for ditto heads out there, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry for you. That's just a personal opinion. I don't think much of Rush Limbaugh, and one of the reasons is that when he got under pressure about the term feminazi, he backpedaled like the SPLC into clarifying that he only meant that he was talking about feminists that were pushing as hard as they could for every woman in the world to have an abortion, that it wasn't really, he was essentially saying not all feminists are like that. Which is,
I remember that. In fact, his specific phrasing was, feminazi's about abortion. And then he would go on about that. Yep.
Well, and so just to clarify, Limbaugh is a purple to blue pill pussy like the rest of them. So anyway, we can carry on. I just wanted to clarify Limbaugh's remarks for him. And I agree with femifascist, too.
Well, I'll say, you look at fascist, the definition of there's actually, if Ophelia Benson and the Free Thought blogs people are listening to this, there's two pronunciations of that word. One is fascist and the other is fascist. Look in a dictionary sometime. I like fascist better. Anyway, it has multiple definitions. The one I think most appropriate to this condense is a tendency toward or actual exercise of strong autocratic or dictatorial control. I will repeat, a tendency toward or actual exercise of strong autocratic or dictatorial control. Is that an unfair thing to say about feminist control of academia?
Well, not if you consider Michael Flood's radio performance last night, where he was basically saying that the problem with male studies that bothered him so much was that it wasn't feminist. He was okay with anything as long as it's in compliance with the feminist worldview, with his ideological perspective and that of Tori Shepard. It was absolutely, if you go back, and I suggest people go, I've got a recording of the interview from last night up on avoicefrommen.com right now, and listen to what Michael Flood actually says. His big problem with male studies is that it's not women's studies. Now, how fucking fascist is that?
Sorry. What an asshole.
Yes, I called him a whore. I'll stand by that, but that may be too insulting to real, honest whores. He is a little fascist fuck, isn't he? Sorry, go ahead, Dara.
I think that also speaks to the narcissism of feminists, that even men's studies have to be all about women. Dear friggin' God. Woo!
Well, okay, and so for anybody who's not caught up with this, there's a group of academics whom we are familiar with, we have spoken to on occasion, interviewed on occasion, and so if speaking to somebody or once publishing one article some time ago by somebody means affiliated, I guess we're affiliated with one of those academics, but I would call that a massive stretch. We are on speaking terms with a few of the individuals involved in a new male studies program that was starting at the University of South Australia. It's the University of South Australia, right?
Yes.
Certainly a university in South Australia. And suddenly the whole program is under review because Tori Shepard, a notorious lying journalist, I'm going to say it again, Tori Shepard, liar, pants on fire, yellow journalist, liar, and whore. Once again, repeated the false report that Voice for Men and other men's rights groups were a hate group. That's a falsehood, and her editors need to know that. They're printing lies. But came out and said these academics were associated with known hate sites, like A Voice for Men, which regularly calls women whores and cunts. No, we will occasionally feature writing by a person who opines that somebody like Michael Flood or a woman like Tori Shepard is a whore, or an asshole, or a cunt. I think Paul once called a woman named Rebecca Watson a media whore. You may not like our use of that language, but if that's your definition of hate speech, then every shock jock in the English-speaking world needs to be accused of hate speech. It's nonsense. It's strongly worded opinion, and that's all it is. I'm on my soapbox again. Somebody take over for me for a minute, because I'm getting overheated.
Honestly, let me ask some questions, because I did not listen to Michael Flood last night. I had better things to do, like cleaning up my kitchen drain, which I imagine was far less icky. But let me ask, because I'm not entirely clear. So the problem with the men's studies group that was going to form at the uni in Australia isn't women's studies. So I wasn't just reacting before with my shock. So they think men's studies should be about what? Studying women and how to please them better? I don't understand. Or there should just be no male studies program, full stop.
No, there should be men's studies, he's asserting, but it should be done in the feminist paradigm. His other problem with it was very, very interesting and very telling. What he said was that the problem with male studies was that it was too focused on the problems that men experienced and did not study enough about their privilege and their entitlements in culture. So what he's asserting essentially there is that we are supposed to understand and try to, through the pursuit of honest scholarship, find solutions to problems faced by men and boys by studying where those problems aren't. Absolutely, I mean, what he's wanting is a study of male privilege from these people.
Well, I think most women's studies
years.
programs have done a bang-up job on maintaining that particular feminist fairy tale. So,
and that's what
got
I'm
it.
saying. That's why all his argument amounted to is that the male studies program wasn't a feminist program. As though feminism, and here's my point, which I think really needs to be pointed out for these, I'm sorry, fucking idiots like Flood and like Shepard. Feminism, folks, is not a science. It is not empirical. It is a collection of theories. It is an ideology. It is not empirical science by which we must view the lens as though it's a law of nature. And Flood's entire premise, indeed all these people's entire premise, is that we must approach the study of everything from economics to men to literature to everything through the feminist lens as though it's some sort of oracle of truth that can't be questioned. This is fascism in action in every sense of the word. You can't find a better definition of fascism than the idea that you cannot discuss or even do scholarly investigation on a subject unless it's done through a particular ideological lens.
Well, right. Scholarly research and feminist research is an oxymoron, of course, because if we do pursue all subject matters through a feminist lens, that means the end of empirical based evidence research as we know it.
No,
that's what I thought.
Right.
Go ahead.
I will say that I listened to the radio interview. I'll make sure it gets linked in the low bar. It's also on A Voice for Men. I'll make sure it gets linked in the low bar after this. I actually think Flood, the lying whore, Michael Flood, I will repeat, whore, Michael Flood, actually somewhat cut his own throat in that interview because he admitted to two things. One, he admitted that three things. Men have problems, and that's kind of been understudied. And two, you can hear it toward the end of the interview. He started talking about, yes, there are areas where men are disadvantaged, and you almost hear him say the words, and women are, and he stops himself from saying there are areas where women are privileged. You can hear it because he's been cornered. If you admit that men get the short end of the stick in any area that's significant and women have an advantage, then the whole unscientific bullshit patriarchy theory is under threat, and he can't have that because it would threaten his income. Wouldn't it, Michael, you whore?
Yeah, what's really funny is toward the end, he asserted that he wasn't afraid of losing his job. You ever hear a kid that gets caught with his hand in the cookie jar and he says, well, first of all, I wasn't trying to take cookies. But Flood comes out saying, I'm really not afraid for my job. Yes, you lying son of a bitch, you're afraid for your job. All you people are afraid for your jobs because you know that once actual scientific research starts coming into the discussion on gender and power, that your fucking number is up. And you will be out of a job, which is exactly where you ought to be.
That's right. Michael Flood, in fact, is associated strongly with something called the White Ribbon Campaign, which has been correctly characterized as a sexist, anti-male hate group which spreads vile propaganda and false cultural narratives, because that's what they do. And that's what Michael Flood does for a living. So he might not lose his teaching job, but a lot of his speaker's fees and a lot of the other shit he gets money for, yeah, it's in trouble if any of the shit that he spouts, and most of it is shit, gets challenged. No, Dean's on fire today. Calm down.
No, don't calm down. I think this is a really important tone to take. This was an act of desperation. One of the things I want to look at in this discussion is just an overview of this whole thing, starting with the article by Tori Shepard, the absolute, calling in the SPLC, which did not even brand us as a hate group. And in fact, the only official statement from the SPLC about A Voice for Men was that we're not a hate group and that our assertions are legitimate.
Well, you know what the feminists remind me of? They're just clinging on to that stupid BS SPL thing that happened. Was it 2 years ago now? They're like the morons who still believe that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It's like, it was a lie the first time. They had to retract it. yet you still believe the lie. Yes, and Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and Saddam Hussein was the architect of 9/11. Yes, you're geniuses, geniuses.
Let me point out that I think Andy Bob said it best. He came on the comments of A Voice for Men and said that feminists are now acting like neurotic housewives, trying to get the most out of their last bottle of Valium.
I love Andy Bob. I love Andy Bob. Oh, he's. I'm trying to think of how to describe Andy Bob, but he's one of our most prolific commenters, and we sometimes put his comments on the front page just because they're so funny. Because nobody can do bitchy about feminism like a gay man. Let me tell you.
I'd go fat hack for Andy Bob, and you can stand by that.
All right,
and Andy Bob, if you're watching, I know you wouldn't want me to, and no disrespect meant.
And I want to say, very much so, I'm absolutely not gay, but if I was, Andy Bob.
Andy Bob, yeah, I'm all over that. I'll be your fag hag. So, the bottom line is they're trying to get a legitimate area of study and education shut down. That is exercise of strong autocratic and dictatorial control. It is exactly how fascist regimes have always worked. It is not yet the standard definition of, complete control of the state of every aspect of life, although you have to wonder the way these people talk, if that's not what their end goal is anyway. But certainly that autocratic control, that urge to silence, that urge to censor, the urge to
silence dissent.
Silence dissent any way you can, and if it won't work directly, then do it indirectly through well poisoning and lies, just like Hitler did when he accused the communists of burning down the Reichstag, okay, which didn't happen. Now, mind you, I'm not a communist fan either, but the fact is he made up a lie in order to help himself seize power. This is brutal lying, and it's from an ideology of hate. Whether they acknowledge it or not, it's true. What does Elizabeth Sheehy, a feminist law professor, advocate?
Okay, Sheehy. I believe the first article about her book, which is, I keep repressing the title of it, let me pull it up. Oh yes, here it is, published by UBC Press, Defending Battered Women on Trial. Elizabeth Sheehy, for those who don't know, is a University of Ottawa professor and a practicing attorney, a law professor, who in this new book states that abused women have the moral right to murder their male abuser. No police, no pressing of charges, no jury, no judge. She can just pop a cap in his butt at will, and it's her moral right to do so.
I think she even worded it as though it were her moral obligation.
Yes, that was it exactly. And as I pondered this more and more, it occurred to me, and I know the first, you automatically lose an argument anytime you bring up Hitler. I forget what that's called.
Godwin's Law.
The Godwin's
Law. It's also
Law.
not true, but go ahead.
But it occurred to me that the feminists finally have their Mein Kampf in this book, which is also just a slightly more academic-y version of Valerie Solanas' Scum Manifesto. And when I first published the link on my Facebook page, it was around Christmas time, about this book, the caption I put on the page was, "Are we paying attention yet? Are we paying attention yet?" This is a law professor who is publishing a book. It's beyond advocating vigilante justice, because as we all know, there are plenty of women who claim they're abuse victims, but they're not. They're actually the perpetrators, and more than likely they probably have some type of personality disorder, or they're full-on sociopaths. And this woman is actively trying to work into law that women who claim abuse, who have murdered a man, don't even have to go to trial. Just give her a pass. Just give this murdering woman a pass.
Well, they need to just carry the body out of wherever it is and probably send a cleanup crew so she doesn't have to be traumatized by cleaning up the blood she just created. And she can go back to, watching, whatever it is, her favorite television show without being interrupted too much.
I tell you, these people, I'm going to say it's these people, we have names on some of them, we don't have names on all of them, but we're working on it. They not only advocate truly hateful and abusive ideas, but some of them advocate outright murder. And even those that won't, they say, well, I don't advocate this murder. I don't endorse Elizabeth Sheehy's position. Where the hell are you in coming out and strongly condemning this woman? And
where are you in writing the University of Ottawa and saying, get this crackpot off of your faculty? Where are you in contacting the Canadian Bar and saying, this woman is a murder advocating lunatic? Disbar her. Disbar her.
Well, I want to go back to the core of Tara's question, because I felt like that she asked it, at least the impression I got was that it was a question for not just the feminist community, but for society at large. Are you paying attention yet? Is anybody paying attention to that? And my answer to that would be largely no. I still think that we live in a cultural coma when it comes to the actions of both women and feminists. And that, I'm not blaming women for that, because men are just as comatose. But I don't see any reaction. What I saw from the media over Elizabeth Sheehy was, well, it's controversial. That was the strongest statement, is that the advocacy for legalized murder in your home for somebody that yelled at you that their sandwich was cold is somehow controversial. No, we're not paying attention yet. We're not.
I'm waiting to hear somebody say, this professor just published a very scholarly look at why, given, the problem with the blacks, we might want to just go ahead and let those lynchings happen because, the KKK is not really a good group, but they have a point. That's how it reads to me.
Sure.
Same thing. Same goddamn thing. What are you talking about? We do not live in a society where women have no other option. We do live in a society where men frequently don't have another option, but that's another, or very few options. But,
yeah, it just seems to keep, it's like a bad dream. It just keeps getting worse.
It does. It does. We literally live in a society where a man can go to jail for getting beat up by his wife. Mm-hmm. And that's not a joke. I've known guys who've been through it. I suspect Dr. T here has met at least one.
More.
Yeah.
I can think of about 5 different guys I'm working with right now, and forget about the guys I'm not working with, but who are on the forum who are trying to get out of bad marriages, have to stay in the same household, and what their spouses are doing to them is beyond abuse. It's psychological torture, and like barging into their offices, ransacking the file cabinets, and they can't do anything. Work files, stuff that they have no business touching. And if they set the boundary and say, get out of my office, don't touch my files, it could be, they could end up arrested. It's totally messed up. Men don't have the options. Women have plenty of options.
I've got a question for Dr. T. I just wanted to see about the parallel here, if I can play host for a moment. When we look at the overview of what's happening in Australia with the attack on male studies there, the orchestration of that attack and how they're colluding to silence people and to cripple them in their efforts, and then you compare that again with looking at the conduct of personality disordered people and how they operate in relationships, isn't there just a great deal of parallels between those two things?
Absolutely. I've said for years, feminism has become an ideology based on borderline and narcissistic pathology, and that's how they act. But it's as a collective. It's a collective group who are completely self-obsessed, refuse to be held accountable. They force fit facts to match their feelings, whatever they may be at any given moment. Anytime somebody holds a mirror up and says, hey, you know, you're just plain wrong. No, women should not be able to murder their spouses with impunity just because they feel like they might have been abused, or even if they legitimately are abused. And what do feminists do when we hold the mirror up, when we say, no, your facts are wrong, actually here's concrete evidence? Male privilege, patriarchy, they make up lies, they pretend that they're the victims, you know, and it's never enough. It's never enough. They keep getting more and more privileged, more and more special perks, more and more special laws, and they're still acting like, you know, they are these disenfranchised individuals without any rights. Not only do women in most Western civilizations have just as many rights as men, they have special rights. And yet they're still acting like victims while they victimize the people they claim who are harming them. It's completely insane, and there absolutely are parallels.
And speaking of the cultural miasma, by coincidence last night when I was having insomnia, I was watching a rerun of an old TV show, and two detectives are talking, and it's about a guy. The short of it is a guy who hit a woman once. He'd only ever done it once, and the male and the female detective are arguing about what happened and why and all that, and they're kind of investigating, and it's all part of a much bigger investigation. But the male detective actually makes the shocking observation, well, he's rich, possibly, and he's troubled, possibly she knew what buttons to hit so that he would hit her, what buttons to push so that he would hit her so she could sue him for money. And the female detective was outraged and said, what kind of women do you hang out with? And I'm like, feminists, apparently.
No, the ones with two legs.
Well, not that any woman would do that, but it just hit me as like, you know, she's like, that's an inappropriate question, and they just moved on, as opposed to saying, well, that could be true.
Yeah, what you saw in that character was her fascism kicking into action, trying to shame him for even having a theory as to how something happened.
And that is all it was.
Sure. Yeah, that's how this stuff works, and it's why, you know, Tori Shepard published in The Punch last year. She just came out and said, look, we got these guys on sexual politics because all we have to do is cast them as regressives and us as the enlightened women, and they'll lose every time. She understands what she's doing. This is the game that she's playing, and that's the same thing I think you saw in that interaction, the fictional interaction.
Well, their game is going to eventually backfire on them, because what I've noticed is that, at least for me, I'm becoming more and more desensitized to that stuff. And in fact, I'm tired of it. I'm fatigued by it. There's a program that I enjoy watching, and the plot line, the last two episodes, is the protagonist's girlfriend's best friend, or I don't know who the heck she is fleeing her boyfriend's home because she's being battered, and I'm like, oh. Eye roll, like, okay, so now I'm supposed to immediately care about this woman who's abused in her, and it's like, of course I should care, but this narrative is so overdone that I don't give a shit anymore.
You know, that is one of the things that there's diminishing returns on anything in life. And the more that we have played this victim narrative for women, the more we sell these sappy we entertainment and Oprah-fied versions of what happens in
relationships. This was NBC. Just as a matter of principle, I don't watch Oprah Winfrey.
But it's all of
them. But
yes, no, but yes, it's all of them. They sell this automatic. They show a little hint of a black eye, and all of a sudden you've got the whole picture in your mind. Yeah, cue the organ music. It's over.
Yep. I tell you, Angry Harry, who's a psychologist, a British guy who's been writing on these issues for decades now, is a good friend to us, by the way. There's a strange rumor going on that we don't get on with Harry. We get on with him great. But his theory is that about 5% of the population is truly mentally disturbed in terms of personality disorder. Remember, Tara chuckled once and says she thinks it's higher, but whatever. But he has the theory, and I think there's something to it, that feminism, political feminism, organized feminism, is a way of giving that 5% of personality disordered women unlimited power.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's not a bad way of looking at it.
I think Harry's dead on about that. He's absolutely right.
I absolutely agree, and it's amazing. You have the one personality disordered person in a system. If you want to see this at work, go to any mental health clinic, go to any law dispute, and just look at the person who has system after system mobilizing to help them. And it's usually the person who is the most unreasonable and the most disordered and the most high conflict. And everybody tiptoes around them. Nothing gets resolved because somebody like this and somebody like these types of feminists, they have a never-ending list of grievances. It's never enough. You fix one of their problems, they manufacture 20 more. And I just want to clarify one thing, because I know this is going to get taken out of context.
Especially by the raw story. Hi, guys.
Yeah, I care about female abuse victims. What I'm getting sick of is the tired narrative that, okay, we just assert that a woman is abused, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm tired of the narrative. I'm tired of the female victim narrative. That's what I'm starting to not care about anymore. I do care about actual abuse victims, whether they're women or men or children.
Right. That's how we all feel, and it's hard not to get calloused. I mean, I have met women who've been in abusive relationships, and because of what I do, I've met more men. But that doesn't mean it's more men in the general world. I'm not the whole world, but yes, it's hard not to get tired of it. Same with rape, man. All a woman has to do is make an allegation. It makes it in the news. And if you say the guy who she accused might be innocent, you're a rape apologist now. At some point, it's really hard not to be desensitized. It's hard to hang on to. I mean, I do. Sometimes I feel like it's on my fingernails, but I'm still hanging on to. Yes, there are bad men. Yes, real female victims do. But the more they sell this idea that it's women always victims, men always perpetrators, men can't be victims, men are actors, women are acted upon narrative, the less I care. There was a time where if I saw a woman being struck on a television show, I had a, what they call frisson. Ooh! And now I'm just like, yeah, woman got hit. There's even a danger in that,
Sure. Let me add something to this. I've worked for 20 years in a population of chemically dependent people. If you can imagine the level of incidents of physical violence that happened in those relationships, it was a common theme. People were getting hit on both sides of the fence. I dealt with many, many, many women that were abused in their relationships. I mean, one after another for 20 years. But what I will tell you is that I almost never came across this scenario where a woman was in a relationship and she was Mary Poppins and he got mad because she burnt the toast and pounded her across the room. What I saw over and over and over again, though, as we started dissecting these relationships, what was actually happening in them was mutual conflict that was escalating. And frequently, it was women who were taunting, who were abusing emotionally, abusing psychologically, putting pressure that did not need to be there, aggravating situations that could have been solved with mature conduct and better behavior and rational approach, and even exploiting the times that he was more vulnerable because of anger or depression or his addiction problems, sticking the knife in, twisting over and over and over and over again, sometimes for years. And then at one point he snaps and slaps the living shit out of her. And all of a sudden, with all my peers in that community, the people that I worked with, what they saw was a relationship with an abusive asshole guy and a poor little female victim. And I'm talking about people with PhDs, with masters in social work, psychiatrists, everybody, all of a sudden looked at this in such a one-dimensional way, and it almost never is. So this whole play-up of women as the default victims in our culture is something that's a matter of brainwashing, even in our mental health field. It just doesn't work that way. And if you try to talk to these people about that, you get the same reaction that Dean saw in that show about the two detectives. If I went into a staffing and said, look, here's what happened in this relationship, you could just watch your watch before all the shrill voices, particularly from the female clinicians in there, was like, oh, no, don't talk that way. Don't tell about the facts of this relationship. Talk about his abuse. That's all that anybody was interested in. So this narrative is even crazier, I think, than most people think.
It is. The first time you witness a woman deranged, screaming, yelling, throwing taunts, throwing insults, throwing belittling comments, and starting to slap and spit and kick a guy, and then finally he loses it and a haymaker goes out, and then he feels like the lowest person on earth, and you see her smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh yeah,
you
it happens.
know that it doesn't always happen that way, but you know this is more complicated than that. Frequently.
Well, you want to see a good example of it. I think AVFM published this video. There's an African American man and two women. The one woman was pushing the guy on the chest, getting in his face. Her friend was filming it, and then he finally pushed her off him, and she's like, "I got you now. You put your hands on me. Assault." It's like, you stupid bleep. No, what you got on film was...
Remember, we're a website that regularly calls women whores and cunts, so just go ahead. No, forget the bleep. And just be honest.
But this woman was assaulting this man, getting in his face, like begging
daring him
to hit her, and he didn't. He pushed her off of him. But
he actually gave her a slap.
She was the one. Oh, I just saw like him pushing like that. But she's the one who's full-on assaulting him, and she's like all triumphant, like, "Oh, see, you assaulted me." It's like, no, he didn't. And what you got on film, you and your equally bleepity bleep companion, are you acting like raging bulls and attacking this guy? But in their minds, they believed that he was the aggressor. It was completely... I think they really believed that he was the aggressor. I don't know. You guys saw the video. What did you make of it? But I think that it's an example of what we're just talking about.
No, it is.
Wanted this guy to hit her.
Yeah. I believe I saw the same video. Maybe I saw a different, similar one. It was certainly about a minute and a half of him backing up and backing up and backing up, and then get away from me, get away from me, get away from me, and her going up on him. I thought I recalled him really giving her as he's backing up, giving her one in the face, but even then, it was just like she just went, see, you hit a woman, and it's like, dude, that's, oh.
Yeah,
Actually, he was a big dude. He was a big dude.
Get to your DBT group stat, nutbag.
And I'll tell you what, he was a big dude, too. If he had really laid into her, she'd have been on the ground. Again, we're not talking about every abusive situation, but this infantilization of women has got to go. We've been at this almost 40 minutes, so we should probably wrap it up. For the people at the University of South Australia, no, we're not affiliated, or anybody in Southern Australia, no, we're not really affiliated with anybody involved in the New Male Studies program down there. We know some of them. We have talked to some of them. No, we do not regularly call women as a class whores or cunts or any of that. We will on occasion call a woman, like Tori Shepard, or a man, like Michael Flood, a whore, a cunt, a bitch, because that's what Michael Flood is, and a liar. And yes, we use heated rhetoric. That is not an excuse to shut down an academic discipline.
But I love the double standard. And what if feminists call men as a group? Potential rapists, potential pedophiles, rape apologists.
That's different.
But that's different.
Patriarchy, Saudi Arabia.
you know, if a man uses a blow-up doll, that's sick and perverted and disgusting. But if a woman has a vibrator and says that it's better than any man, I guess that's just sexual empowerment, right?
You go, girl.
I don't need no man. I got my vibrator here. I've heard that shit.
They don't even need men to raise babies, for fuck's sake.
Apparently not, even though, of course, if they do it without the father, the kids wind up screwed up in ways they don't want to acknowledge. But
well, that's patriarchy too.
That's patriarchy too, me just saying that. Yeah, shutting down a legitimate area of academic study because it does not meet the feminist ideological lens. That's fascist. Guilt by association, because we know these people and we occasionally use rhetoric, therefore they're bad people. That's guilt by association. That's classic fascism. I'm sorry, it is.
It is, and it's just
it's traitorous to the entire idea of what a liberal education is supposed to be. I'm sorry, I'll shut up now. Go ahead, Tara.
No, I mean it's switching from it needs to be all about me to it needs to be all about we. It's like, okay, so even in a men's study group, men have to study, or a men's group, they have to study about women and why they're not good enough for them. Why do they? Never mind. Never mind.
Look, one thing I want to add to this, and for the people that are trying to get this very worthy initiative off the ground, and far be it from me to advise anybody on anything when it comes to this. I get it. You know, you're dealing with a university administration that is totally without spine, that will cave at the drop of a hat the moment that these powerful feminist groups threaten to go out into the community, which they're doing right now, to try to paint the university as being against women so people won't send their daughters there and so that they won't get education. I get it, that there's fear for you in saying the wrong thing. But let me also say, these fascist pigs will never quit. If you want a university program for male studies that does pursue honest scholarship in the study of men and masculinity, you are not going to get there without fighting for it. It'll never happen. And again, it's easy for me to say. I'm not the one that has been dedicating years to making this happen at the University of South Australia. I'm not the one that's put my life into it, and I'm not the one that's seeing all that get flushed down the toilet. But this stuff was going to happen. The attack was going to happen. If they hadn't tried to use AVFM in the attack, they would have used CAP-A, where Miles Groff did a lecture, and if they didn't use CAP-A, they would have used something else in order to paint people as demonic so that they can basically hold on to their control of the discourse in the universities. If you're going to get there, you're not going to get there without a fight. And that's what I want to just sort of put out there.
Excellent. Any closing thoughts, Dr. T?
Nope, I think Paul said it very well.
And it is a fight worth having if you believe in the value of a liberal education, if you believe that the university is there for open inquiry and different ideas. If that's what the university is supposed to be, then shame on you for caving to these fascists. That's all I got to say. And so we'll be here next week at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We just went a little an hour early this week, but we will be back. And Paul and I will be talking about this more on Aaron Pitzy's show on Saturday. So hope you'll all join us there then too. I guess good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.